Ever notice how sometimes a story just grabs everyone's attention and all of a sudden it seems like everyone's talking about the same book?
Oh yeah, absolutely. These books just sort of explode onto the scene.
It's like they capture everyone's imagination and you just can't escape the hype. And that's exactly the kind of book we're diving into today.
We're taking a deep dive into Fourth Wing, the first book in the Empyrean series by Rebecca Yarros.
It's become a huge phenomenon, and you know you've shared some sources with us about it. So today we're going to really break it down for you.
We're going to pull out the most interesting and insightful pieces.
Exactly. And by the end, you'll either understand the hype if you haven't read it yet, or you'll have some new insights if you've already finished it.
All without having to read through a ton of different articles and reviews yourself.
So to do that, we've got a really fascinating collection of analysis and summaries of Fourth Wing.
And our mission today is to figure out what makes this book so captivating.
We'll be looking at everything from the world building and the characters to the blend of genres, and you know how the readers are reacting to it.
All that good stuff.
Okay, so let's get started.
Let's do it.
First things first. The world of Navarre. And those dragons.
Ah, yes, the dragons.
So tell me about them. What makes them so special in this world?
Well, the most important thing to remember is that dragons in Fourth Wing are not just creatures of myth and legend.
Okay, so they're real.
Very real. And they are powerful and intelligent beings capable of forming a lifelong bond with their riders.
And this bond is like the bedrock of their society.
Exactly. It's not just a cool concept. It's the very foundation of their world.
Got it. So then where do these riders and dragons come together?
That would be the Basgiath War College.
Okay, the War College. I'm picturing like a typical school setting, but I have a feeling that's not quite right.
Not even close. This is not your average school. Basgiath is an incredibly dangerous and demanding institution where cadets are constantly pushed to their limits.
So not a lot of time for studying in the library then?
Definitely not. The education here is all about survival. And within the college, there are 4 quadrants, each specializing in a different area. Healers, scribes, infantry, and of course the most prestigious and perilous quadrant of them all, the Dragon Riders.
Ah, the Dragon Riders. So they're like the elite of the elite.
They are. But becoming a Dragon Rider comes at a very high cost. And that's where our protagonist Violet Sorrengail comes in.
Violet.
Yeah.
And she starts out with a very different path in mind, right? More parchment and ink than fire and scales.
Exactly. Violet has spent her whole life preparing for a quieter existence in the Scribes Quadrant.
Safe and sound, surrounded by books.
But fate has other plans for her, thanks to a sudden and dramatic decision by her mother, the formidable General Commander.
Oh boy, so what happens?
Violet is thrust into the Dragon Riders Quadrant, completely unprepared and facing incredible odds.
That's a pretty big shift. Talk about trial by fire.
Yeah, no kidding. And to make matters even more challenging, Violet is not exactly built for the brutal physicality of dragon riding.
Right. So she's at a disadvantage from the start.
Absolutely. Compared to the other cadets, she's smaller and more delicate, which makes her an easy target.
I see. So she's got a lot to prove.
She does. But what she lacks in physical strength, she makes up for in intelligence and determination. She's constantly underestimated by those around her, but that just fuels her fire.
I love that. A classic underdog story.
Absolutely. And this whole underdog story unfolds in a setting with a very chilling motto: fly or die.
Okay, that doesn't sound like a place for the faint of heart.
It's not.
Yeah.
That motto pretty much sums up the challenges these cadets face. They're constantly thrown into life or death situations where failure is not an option.
So I'm guessing that making friends is probably pretty low on their list of priorities.
You're right about that. The atmosphere is incredibly tense and competitive. Alliances are fragile, and betrayal is always a possibility.
Sounds pretty cutthroat.
It is. Each cadet is fighting for their own survival. Only those who prove themselves worthy get to participate in the bonding ceremony, where they have the chance to bond with the dragon.
And that's the ultimate goal, right? To find your dragon and become a rider.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got this epic fantasy world with dragons and danger and fierce competition.
But it's not all doom and gloom.
Oh, there's more.
There's a whole other layer to this story, because in the midst of all this epic fantasy, there's also a really compelling romance.
Really? Now that's interesting. How does that work? Dragons and romance.
Well, Fourth Wing manages to blend these two genres seamlessly, and a big part of that is the classic enemies to lovers trope.
Ooh, I love a good enemies to lovers story. How is it done in this book?
It's done really well. You see the tension and chemistry build gradually between the main characters. At first, they clash constantly. They're rivals, they bicker, they challenge each other. But as they're forced to work together, they start to see each other in a new light. And the relationship evolves from animosity to something much deeper.
That's so cool. So the romance isn't just a side plot, it's woven into the main story.
Exactly. It's integral to the character development and the overall arc of the story.
That's awesome. And you know what else I find interesting?
What's that?
The fact that despite this really harsh environment where everyone's fighting for their lives, there's also this theme of found family.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Even in this cutthroat world, the cadets who connect on a deeper level form incredibly strong bonds.
So they find support and camaraderie where you'd least expect it.
Exactly. These relationships become a refuge, a source of strength in a chaotic and dangerous world. And it really speaks to that human need for connection.
I love that. And it just adds another layer of depth to the story. Okay, so we've talked about the world, the characters, the themes, but what about the plot itself?
Oh, the plot is fantastic. It's fast-paced, full of twists and turns, and just when you think you know what's going to happen, Yarros throws in a curveball.
Sounds like a real page-turner.
It is. And the way she reveals information is so clever.
True.
She keeps you guessing and constantly challenges your assumptions.
So no predictable moments.
Definitely not.
Wow. It's no wonder this book has gotten so much attention.
Yeah, it's been incredibly well received, both critically and commercially.
Like what kind of reception are we talking?
Think New York Times bestseller lists, glowing reviews from critics, and tons of buzz online. It's been praised for its originality, its accessibility, and its ability to capture the imaginations of readers.
I heard it's even been compared to some major fantasy series like Game of Thrones, Harry Potter, and The Hunger Games.
That's right. And it makes sense when you think about it. It's got that epic scope and complex world building of Game of Thrones, the magical elements and coming-of-age journey of Harry Potter, and a high-stakes competition and fight for survival of the Hunger Games.
It's like a perfect blend of everything we love about fantasy.
It really is.
So now I want to bring this back to you, the listener. Because even though we're talking about a fantasy world, there are always real-world lessons we can learn from these stories.
Oh, absolutely.
So what can we take away from Fourth Wing?
Well, I think one of the biggest takeaways is Violet's resilience. Despite her initial disadvantages and the constant underestimation she faces, she never gives up.
Right, she keeps pushing forward, and that's such a powerful message for all of us, no matter what challenges we're facing in our own lives.
It is. And then there's the importance of found family, the way those cadets support each other in such a harsh environment.
It reminds us that we need people in our corner, people who believe in us and will be there for us no matter what.
Right. And that could be friends, family, colleagues, or even online communities. It's about finding your tribe and building those strong connections.
And what about the enemies to lovers dynamic? Any lessons to be learned there?
I think it teaches us to be open-minded in our interactions. Sometimes the people we initially clash with can surprise us.
Yeah. Sometimes those differences can actually lead to something really special.
Exactly. And lastly, I think Fourth Wing reminds us of the power of a good story.
How so?
Well, the way Yarros tells this story, it's so engaging and captivating.
Yeah.
And that's a skill that's valuable in any area of life, whether you're giving a presentation at work or just trying to connect with someone on a personal level.
So it's all about being able to capture people's attention and keep them engaged.
Exactly.
So there you have it. We've flown high and dived deep into the world of Fourth Wing. We've explored its unique dragon rider bond, followed Violet on her incredible journey, and uncovered the themes of resilience and connection that make this story so powerful.
We've seen how even in a world filled with danger and competition, love and friendship can flourish.
And now as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final thought. We've talked about the intense pressure and high stakes within the Rider's Quadrant.
Right, the fly or die mentality.
Exactly. So considering all of that, what do you think is the most crucial element for an individual's survival and success in any challenging environment?
That's a really great question.
Is it innate talent, that natural immunity that some people seem to be born with?
Could be.
Or is it adaptability? That willingness to learn and grow and adjust to changing circumstances.
That's important too, for sure.
Or maybe it's the strength of their support system, Those bonds with family, friends, and mentors who provide guidance and encouragement along the way.
I think it's probably a combination of all those things.
Yeah, maybe you're right. It's probably different for everyone.
But it's definitely something to think about.
It is, and I encourage you to reflect on that in your own life and in the sources you've shared with us. We hope this deep dive has given you a valuable shortcut to understanding Fourth Wing and its impact.
If you found this conversation intriguing, I definitely recommend checking out Rebecca Yarros' work, or exploring other fantasy novels that might spark your imagination.
And as always, thank you so much for sharing your sources and engaging with us on this journey.
Until next time, happy reading.
And happy flying.